Guys, I'm really sorry. I named my last video one word from every language, but I fear I barely made a dent. But trust, in this video, we'll get all the ones I missed, starting with Achanese, which gave us the word gecko. There are multiple different possibilities for the origin of gecko, including onomatopoeias in Malay. One theory is that it comes from the Achanese gecko, meaning busy, and was then borrowed into Dutch as gecko, which found its way into English, replacing contemporary forms like Chaco and Jacoa. Avestan gave us Homa, a sacred plant in Zoroastrianism that made its way into English from Avestan, which in turn got it from Pro-Iranian, which came from the root Sohmas in Pro-Indo-Iranian, which passed it into Sanskrit, giving us the cognate Soma, which got a new definition when it was used as a drug in Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. Cebuano gave us the word gunner, specifically in terms of the person designated to pour drinks in a drinking session. The word in Cebuano actually came from the word gunner in English. This is an example of a reborrowing, where a language borrows a word from a language that borrowed the same word from them. Other examples include the English Fußball, that came from the German Fußball, that came from the English football. The English anime, which comes from the Japanese anime, an abbreviation of animation, which comes from the English animation. And the Greek cinema, from the French cinéma, from the Greek kinema. A super cool phenomenon. Gunner didn't just come from the word gunner, it also came from the English word shooter, the one actually taking the shots. Shooter comes from the word shot, which comes from the Middle English shot, which comes from the Old English shot, and from the Proto-Germanic skuta. Crimean Tatar gave us balaclava, which comes from the name of the city Balaclava, in whose namesake battle in the Crimean War, British soldiers had to wear balaclavas to not freeze to death. The name of the city comes from the Russian, which comes from Crimean Tatar, which comes from Ottoman Turkish, which comes from a word meaning a good place to fish. Danish gave us the word hygge, a state of comfort, safety, and togetherness. I already included aquavit for Danish last week, but that's just not Danish enough. Hygge came from the Proto-Germanic hugana, meaning to think, into the Old Norse hygge, into the Old Danish hygge, into the Danish hugge, which was borrowed into English. Ilocano gave us the word yo-yo. While the origin is a little murky, possibly from the duplication of the word for you, yo, in Ilocano, to imply that it returns to you, Pedro Flores, a Filipino immigrant to the United States, in the language Ilocano, gave us the word yo-yo. But sadly, you can't play it in Scrabble. At first, I thought it was because it was trademarked, but you can play Frisbee, so I don't know. Fun fact, the brand name Frisbee comes from the name on the original Frisbee, Mrs. Frisbee's Pies. The surname Frisbee comes from the Old Danish Frisbee, which comes from the Old Norse roots Frisir, meaning Frisian, and Bir, meaning settlement. Indonesian gave us the word compound. No, not the meaning of combining multiple things from Latin, though that probably did have an influence on the spelling. I'm talking about the noun for a place where stuff is held, which comes from the Indonesian kampung, which comes from Malay, which got its word from Proto-Malayic. In these languages, kampung doesn't mean compound and instead means village, which is reflected in the word kampung in English. Kazakh gave us the word tenge. The currency came into English from Kazakh, which got its name from Old Turkic. Slovak gave us halyr, a former currency of Slovakia, which came into Slovak from the German hela, which itself came from the name of the city Halem Kocha. Slovene gave us kolo, a folk dance, danced in a circle, from Proto-Balto-Slavic kalan, meaning wheel, into the Proto-Slavic kolo, into the Slovene kaulo, into English. Sundanese gave us the word bantam, from the Dutch name Bantam for the city of Banten, which got its name from the Sundanese Wahanten. Tagalog gave us boonies, which came from boondocks, which came from the Tagalog bundok, for mountain, which came from the Proto-Malayo-Polynesian bunduk. Tibetan gave us the word yeti from the Tibetan gyedred, which is a compound of gye, meaning dirt or rust, and dred, meaning bear. Tibetan is also the source of our term abominable snowman, which is actually a calque from the Tibetan mi stug gangsmi, a compound of mi stug, meaning abominable, and gangsmi, meaning snowman. For those of you who haven't yet seen last week's video, a calque is a word or phrase borrowed into a language by translating the individual components from the target language. The word loanword is actually a calque from the German loanwords, but then the word calque is just a loanword from French. Speaking of calques, let's take a look at some languages that may not have given English loanwords directly, but have given us some calqued phrases. Starting with Assamese, which gave us ghost pepper, a calque from the Assamese Bhut Zalakia, meaning Bhutanese chili. The Bhut that means Bhutanese was confused for the similarly sounding Bhut that means ghost, giving us the calque ghost pepper. Blackfoot gave us the phrase woman sage, a term for the plant Artemisia frigida, calqued from the Blackfoot aaki kaksimo, a compound word from aaki, from a root meaning woman, ethque, and kaksimo, meaning sage. Esperanto gave us the word crocodile, not the animal, instead a calque of the verb meaning to speak a language that isn't Esperanto at an Esperanto language gathering. From the Esperanto crocodili, from crocodilo, from the Latin crocodilus, from the ancient Greek crocodilos. Lombard gave us the phrase cold feet, a calque from the Lombard avec minga frecipe, a phrase that means to have no money, that literally translates to be cold in the feet. Maltese gave us the phrase willful homicide, which is a calque of the Maltese omicidio volontario, which is itself a calque of the Italian omicidio volontario, from homicidium and voluntarius. Pali gave us the phrase 10 perfections, the 10 principal values from Buddhist scripture, which is a calque from the Pali dasaparami. Vai is the source of the word badmouth. The origin of this calque is a little unknown, but it is thought to have come from the vai danyama, meaning to curse someone, or literally evil mouth, and it found its way from the Mande languages like Vai or Mandinka to Gullah in the United States into English. Well, I hope you guys don't badmouth me in the comments, and make sure to give this video a like so I can make enough tinga and halir to afford to live in Huga. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I know I enjoyed making it for you. It can be really cool to see where the words we use come from and try and trace exactly how they got there. Even after this video, there are still so many languages I have yet to talk about. Take Papua New Guinea, for example, where there are over 840 different languages spoken, and yet one of the few terms in English I could find from one of these languages is, well, Papua New Guinea. But many countries have totally different names in their own languages than they do in English. If you want to find out more about that, make sure to tune in for the video next week. And if you never want to miss a video, make sure to be subscribed. And have a nice day.